Were you a library kid? I was a library kid. I loved using my library card. I lived in the middle of nowhere and I loved reading. Anywho, this video is all about libraries in a programming sense, right? We're continuing this network automation, coding, learning using AI course for network engineers. Can you tell I'm getting a little bit loopy? I'm getting pretty pregnant for this. I'm doing my best, y'all. We're really rubbing together those 2 to 3 remaining brain cells here. So here's the secret. And that secret is that we do not code everything from scratch in our code. Whether it's automation, whether it's an application, etc. Yeah, this might come as a surprise to you, and I don't mean, oh, hey, I'm just gonna copy and paste from the internet, which that happens too, but what I'm talking about is the fact that there have been these things called libraries, which are just like publicly available packets of code that you can download and install. You know, every language has like a place where they keep track of these libraries and like have an approval process, blah, blah, blah. So Python has a certain number of libraries that people have built and still maintain to achieve certain tasks. And instead of you having to think through how to solve these problems yourself and reinvent the wheel every time, you go and check if there is a library already existing for what you want to do, and you go ahead and download and install that. Obviously check the security of it, blah, blah, blah. Now there's usually documentation online for how these libraries work. You can also just usually Google your questions about a certain library if it's a popular library in a popular language like Python, or use AI to get these answers, which again, we're gonna cover very soon in this course. But yeah, for now, all you need to know is that, hey, I don't have to write everything myself. I can first see if someone else has done it before, and if there's a library that exists for it, if it's reputable, if it can be installed, and boom. All coders, all developers use libraries. I don't know, maybe unless you're in like a really, really insulated environment, or you're working on really top-notch stuff, or at some like really big tech company, maybe they try to build things in-house, but for the most part, we're all out here using libraries. But the best way to learn is what? To practice hands-on. So let's do that now. All right, so here's what we're gonna do, guys. We are just going to, for exposure therapy, pretend that we wanna see if there's a Python library that exists out there to do a certain task or to deal with certain types of information. And you're gonna walk through it step by step with me. I'm going to try to use a library that I've never tried using before. You'll get to kind of see my thought process going through it. And the reason we're gonna use this for exposure therapy is because in the next level of this course, when we're using AI for learning, is when I'm actually going to help guide you through some of the most common libraries that I think you'll need in network automation. But again, level 1 of this course focuses heavily on being able to think, being able to critically think like a developer or coder, because we do have AI, right? But I'm teaching you how to use your brain. So I've got our file open from last time again. And you know, let's say that, like, for instance, we have this user named IP dictionary, and right now I'm individually holding IP addresses as strings. But what if I want to know if there's a library out there for working with IP addresses? And what I mean by this is, like, maybe I want to be able to manipulate an IP address. Maybe I want to be able to create a subnet and assign host from that subnet. Let's just like see what exists out there, and if there's something that's good for just exposure therapy in this video without getting too into the weeds in anything. So what I'm gonna do is, I don't know, I guess if I was younger, I would just maybe go, well, actually, no, it's not a younger issue. I'm trying to avoid using AI yet in the course on purpose. I'm trying to show you the older school way on purpose. So we're not going to go to AI, right? I'm just gonna Google for now. And let's Google Python libraries for dealing with IP addresses. So accidentally, because I can't avoid AI, we do get the Gemini overview, right? And it looks like both the Gemini overview first mentions this library called IP address, and we also, it's the first like regular link that comes up in Python documentation, is this IP address, IPv4, IPv6 manipulation library. So I guess this Gemini came up against our will. Let's take a look at it. It says IP address. This module, part of Python's standard library, since Python 3.3 provides tools for creating, manipulating, and validating IPv4 and IPv6 addresses and networks. It includes operations like whether an address belongs to a network, performs arithmetic on addresses, and converts between different representations. Okay, I mean, that seems pretty useful. And they give us an example here. We'd need to verify ourselves if that's accurate, but they give an example of creating an address and creating a network. I would also then, because I'm learning about this, I'm going to go into the official documentation at Python. So I see the name of the library and a description. We have access to the source code. So I'll open that up just so you can see, you know, what that looks like. So here's where the code is hosted. We haven't yet talked about GitHub. But if you wanted to see exactly what is going on in this library and how they made it, or maybe from like a security standpoint, what's going on in here, you could literally examine the code right here. So that's pretty cool, right? So Again, this kind of tells us already what, Gemini went ahead and explained to us. We're creating and manipulating IPv4 and IPv6 addresses and networks. It says this is the full module API reference for an overview and introduction. See an introduction to the IP address module. So let's click on the intro because I like getting into things quickly. I get kind of bored reading through stuff too much. It does say that this is aimed primarily at users that aren't familiar with IP networking terminology, but may also be useful to network engineers wanting an overview of how IP address represents IP network addressing concepts. Okay, so it sounds like this document is for the people who don't know network engineering, and I might be a developer, but I'm not this much of a noob. So we gonna skip this little intro module. Let's look at the full document, and there's a table over here on the side too. So let's see, convenience factory functions. It provides factory functions to conveniently create these things. So IP address dot IP address and then insert an address. Return an IPv4, IPv6 address object depending on the IP address passed as arguments. Okay, so I'm kind of reading along silently because I can't really talk to the camera and process what the frick this is saying at the same time. We can, return an IPv4, IPv6 interface object depending on the IP address passed as argument, IP addresses. Okay, so those are just convenience factory functions, IP addresses, address objects. Don't get hung up on the word objects yet either. I will create another video just so that you know what it is for this course, but it's getting too much into the theory at this point for you. So the IPv4 address and IPv6 address objects share a lot of common attributes. So, I'm gonna be honest, I don't feel like reading all this. I'm pregnant, I don't want to read. We can refer back to this documentation if we need to, okay? Like, it's not bad documentation, it's just kind of like a lot to read. It gets a little boring, right? But, we can read the headings here, like we can get a sense of what logic is enabled if we use this library, but let's just do some hands-on stuff. So I'm gonna open VS Code, and I know that this file has a hodgepodge of all kinds of crap in it right now, but we're not talking about best practices right now. Let's put it underneath our what is a dictionary, since that's where we introduced IP addresses in this file. This is where we can practice. And what we're going to do is, if this is an official Python library, there is a way to download and install it from the internet. There is something built into Python called pip. It's a package manager. Every language, I believe, has a built-in way for you to install additional libraries or additional code. In Python, it's pip, and if you want to install something, you have to know what the name of that thing is, but the command to install something is pip install and then the name of whatever it is. And so I'm gonna guess it's IP address. I really shouldn't guess, I should just look it up, but I was right, yay. So you can see collecting IP address, it downloads it, it says installed, collected packages, successfully installed, and it tells us what version. It also lets us know that there's a newer release of pip, the package manager, available. And I'm gonna go ahead and run that update because, seems like a good idea. And I'm just hitting the tab because I'm too lazy to finish it, but it can't tab very easily, so I had to finish it anyway. All right, and it basically goes through the same sequence. We can see at the end, successfully installed pip 25.3. So it uninstalled the old version and successfully installed the new version. Amazing. Okay, so anyway, long story short, we have the IP address library in here now, and just like we talked about before with things built into Python, when it comes to libraries in Python we want to use, we can just kind of mess around and see what logic is hidden behind it, and just reference documentation if we need to. So I have no idea what we're going to be doing here. Let's do IP. Oh, actually, sorry, I forgot. So when you want to use a library, first you have to make sure it's installed. The context is important. This is getting a little advanced too, but sometimes you can have it installed globally on your laptop. Sometimes you might have it installed in a virtual environment in Python. So make sure it's installed and installed in the location that you are working. But at the top, we use an import statement. So we install the library and then we import it into our code. We bring it into our code. So just because it's installed doesn't mean that any code you write is automatically going to reference it. You have to say in the code, hey, pull from this library, this library, this library. You don't have to use it for things that are built into Python. You don't have to use it for things that you are directly writing into the code. You just need to use it for importing libraries. Import IP address, and we get no squigglies or error messages because it is installed. It does tell us that it's not accessed yet, but it makes sense. We haven't used it yet. So let's go back down here. IP address, and then let's hit the dot to see what logic it reveals. Let's see. Okay, let's just click on one. IP address. So this is a function that is available to us. And if I hit the parentheses, I get more information. So it's expecting a raw IP address. It can be an IPv4 or IPv6 address. Yeah, okay, it explains here more too. Address, a string or integer, the IP address. Integers less than 2. And what it does is it takes an IP string or int and returns an object of the correct type. So basically this function is, instead of us just having to work with these string IP addresses in our code, which like it's treated like text in Python, like we can't do anything meaningful with it. We can't do like mathematical operations on it or like subnet math like we would probably want to. This function in the IP address library, I'm interpreting this as we can put an IP address in here and it gives us back what looks like just the same IP address, but what it really gives us back is a particular object that is allowed to be treated differently and used differently in Python. And don't judge me, I don't remember. All right, let's use this one. I know that there's different classes. I know there's private and public, blah, blah, blah. I understand that, blah, blah, blah. Don't come at me. I don't remember the address ranges. So we're gonna paste that in there and we get a squiggly error line. It says it was not closed. Okay, and the reason why, again, you have to use a string or integer. So I don't know how we would put an integer here because that's not an integer, but now we have no errors. Like I made a string with the quotation marks, now there's no errors. Okay, well, how else would I do that? I just want to know, like, how would I make it an int because there's decimals in it? Like, this doesn't make any sense. All right, let's go back to the documentation. I guess here. Okay, it tells us the following constitutes a valid IP address. Okay, I see the string here. An integer that fits into 32 bits. Ah, okay, well, I'm not doing that. Now you guys know. That's how else we could do it. I'm just looking at like what I want to do here as an example in the video. Okay, so here's a simple one I feel like to practice with. This library gives you an arithmetic operator, so integers can be added to or subtracted from address objects. Here's some examples. So if you have an IP address object of 127.0.0.2, you can add 3 to it, and it will then give you the IP address of 127.0.0.5. Okay, so let's try it out ourselves for giggles, because documentation's not always right? And let's print. Actually, let's store it in a variable. I'm just gonna be lazy. Please don't get mad at me, internet. Print IP address. Okay, and then let's do another one. Let's do IP address met, IP address adding, and we're gonna do the same exact function. Oh, what? Why is it not offering me all the same information? Can I only make one IP address? Like, why do I not see IP address? Is private IP address dot. What in the world? Oh my gosh, I made the variable name the same as the library name. That probably doesn't help. Let's put a, okay, that's probably what happened. IP address adding equals IP address dot. There we go. That was the problem, guys. At least my pregnancy brain gives you a lot of opportunities to learn through different mistakes. Okay, so let's do the same IP address, 192.168.1.1, and let's add 10. And then let's print IP address adding. All right, so we've got 2 examples here, right? And I apologize, because when we print this, we're gonna see a lot of other crap because we've been doing a lot of stuff in this video. So we're going to see the IP address. We should just see the same IP address come back, just code-wise, it's gonna be treated differently than a string so that you guys can actually do cool crap with it. And then we're gonna have, hopefully, this IP address with 10 added to the end. So let's run it. Okay, and this is at the top of our code, so it should be the first things we print. All right, so I see 192.168.1.11. So this one definitely successfully printed. You know, we added 10 here at the end. That worked. I wonder why. Oh my gosh, I didn't. Okay, so here's another mistake to learn from. So not only did I initially name the variable the name of the library name, which is going to confuse Python or confuse my developer environment, but also when I changed the variable here, I did not change the variable in my print statement, and it's still the name of the library. So I need to fix that. Ha 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 ha. Let's play it again. And then let's look at the top. Boom. There we go. 192.168.1.1. And then we have the one with the math. Yay! And if you still don't understand why this is a big deal, let's try doing an IP address example where we don't use this library and we just use IP address as a string, and I'll show you what I'm talking about, like why this library exists, at least based on like the examples we did with it so far. So let's do IP address as string will be the variable name, and then let's do 192.168.1.1. Okay, we'll print that. So we have that example, and then we will also do, this is a really long variable name as string with addition. All right, let's do 192.168.1.1 plus 10, right? Because we can use a plus sign in Python. It is recognized, addition is recognized in Python. It's built in. So let's print that. All right, let's see what happens here. When we print it, oh, we get an error. So we get our 192.168.1.1 and our 192.168.1.11. That's from up here, like we just did previously. Then we see 192.168.1.1 again, right? Because this is a string, we can print a string. But if we want to change, if we want to manipulate this IP address and like add 10 to it, add 10 to that last, what is it, quartet octet. When we try to print the result of that, we get a traceback. This is the most recent call. It's in this file. It's in line 21 right here. And we get the little red squiggly line right where there's a plus sign. It says type error can only concatenate string, not int to string. So basically what Python is trying to tell us is that, hey, we have an issue with data types here. You're working with text or string, and you can only add other text or strings to this piece of text. Like you can't add a number to it. And we already know that with just plain Python, we can't treat an IP address like just a number, right? Because it's not just a straight integer and it doesn't meet the definition for a float. So I hope that is a simple example that demonstrates a little bit why you might decide to install this library. Again, I've never worked with it. Maybe we'll work with it in future examples for gigs. And yeah, like I said, focus on understanding what a library is, how to decide when you might need one, where to go look for one, and how to start learning about it, practicing with it. And again, hold your horses. We're going to get into the specifics of what libraries I recommend you know and start practicing with in later videos. Take care, guys.